Welcome to the Compass TV show. So great to have everybody join us. And we have a very special guest with us today, and we're going to touch on a topic that I believe a lot of people go, don't want to talk about it. But you know what? We're going to take some time and discuss this topic today because I think it's very important. It's better to have the open conversation than to close the door and say, hey, I'm just back here dealing with it by myself, but I don't want to talk about it. So before we get into that, let's welcome Kelsey. Kelsey, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. Of course, before we get started into the topic we're going to talk about, we'll keep them a little bit in mystery for a while. Where did you grow up?
I grew up just kind of north of here in a small town called Appleton.
Okay.
Yeah, so not too far from here.
You're not too far from home.
No.
Very interesting. And you graduated from high school, I assume, in Appleton.
Yeah, it was a kind of there are a bunch of small towns in that area, so it was a consolidation. It was Lacaparo, was the high school.
Yep, very familiar with that.
Yeah.
And from there you went on to schooling. Where did you go on to school at?
Yes, I got my bachelor's degree in Brookings at South Dakota State University, and I graduated from there with my sociology degree and went on to graduate school in Mankato, Minnesota State. Okay. And there I finished my master's of social work.
Okay, wonderful. So you basically went west to go south.
Yep.
And you got it. Well, that's wonderful. What brought you into this career field? Was there something that just drew you in, or was it during your schooling at Brookings?
So I knew I enjoy I'm a caretaker. I enjoy taking care of people, and my mom is a nurse, and I had maybe thoughts of going into nursing, but I'm not sure I like all the science and that type of caretaking. And so I decided to go into more of mental health and human services. And after I finished my bachelor's degree, I had a professor that really encouraged me to go on, and nobody in our family has done that before. And so it was a new experience to go on to graduate school, and I did it.
Oh, wonderful.
and I'm happy that I did. So.
Okay. Well, let's take you back to graduate school. What was your thesis on?
So we didn't have to do a thesis, we had to do a capstone project. Okay. And at the time I was working at a mental health crisis center, and they were developing a new program. It was called like a mobile mental health crisis program. So we would go out to people's homes and help them through their situations. And so my capstone project was on developing that program and putting that program in place in the Mankato area.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really amazing, because I know that with the One Voice for Seniors group in town, and we really work for helping to better the lives of seniors, that one of our main things was getting the medical doctors to come into the housing units, because we really believe that seeing them in their normal environment gives you the best clue as to what's truly going on.
Yes, absolutely.
So with your capstone project, that really rings a bell. Going into their environment, then you get to see the true picture sooner than going through the fog in between.
Absolutely. And you eliminate a lot of the barriers for getting people help, transportation and finding a provider that's accessible at that time. So yeah, it's a good
wonderful project.
Yeah.
So you went to Mankato, and now you are here in Marshall. What brought you back to Marshall?
So my husband and I were going to school at the same time, and we wanted to be closer to our families. His family is from South Dakota, but my family is from Appleton, and so there was a job available here actually related to mobile crisis, the mobile crisis program that I had been working with, and so I jumped at that opportunity, and the location was decent, close enough to our family. So we figured we'd give it a try, and we hadn't lived here before, so we had to figure it out, and we're new to the community, but it was a good choice.
Oh, good, good. So how long have you been in Marshall?
Oh, goodness. So probably since 2014.
Okay.
And then a year after that, we moved to Tyler. My husband works at SDSU.
Okay.
So, yeah. So we're kind of the in-between Marshall and Brookings.
Okay, good, wonderful. So have you come to find that Marshall is a good community to be in and are enjoying it and learning a little bit more about it?
Yes, we certainly enjoy living in Marshall, and the facilities and the stores and everything that you need is here, and we appreciate that. We've got 2 little kids, and we enjoy going to the library and different events like that. So it's nice to have those things, as well as the events like at the chamber. There's just a lot going on, which we enjoy.
Well, good, good. Well, let's get on to this mystery topic that I've been just eluding as we've been talking along here. We're going to talk about depression today. And I think, I know we were talking beforehand that as soon as you say that word, I can hear the buttons going click, 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 click. And we're saying, no, just keep it on for a second, because often people think that they're not affected by depression, number one, which we've had that conversation. We believe that everyone out there, and maybe you can add to this, that everyone out there deals with depression.
A good portion of the population will deal with depression and or anxiety at some point in their life, and those bouts of depression may be relatively short, or they may be more extended periods of time that worsen and get better. But most people at some point in time in their life will experience some type of depression. It's very common, actually.
Right. And so if you're out there and you have a day where maybe perhaps you're feeling down, or maybe something happened in your life, maybe they lost a spouse, and they're feeling, they just can't seem to kind of get out of that slump, they're probably, perhaps, have a touch of depression.
Yeah, very well could be, definitely.
Yeah. And so then it's just trying to figure out, how do we work with that? But before we get into depression a little bit more, you also touched on that you said that anxiety or depression, are those two that kind of work together commonly? It may not be in everybody, but is that a common occurrence, that if you have depression, you may also have a little bit of an anxiety?
Those two issues can tend to go hand in hand. They are separate issues, but they tend to cling to one another. Sometimes people get anxious because they are depressed. And sometimes people get depressed because they are anxious. And sometimes they just go together. When somebody is going through a depressive experience, there's changes in their life most of the time. And depression usually negatively affects people's lives, and that can cause anxiety when there's negative changes.
Well, let's talk about depression. So if someone's out there listening going, oh, I don't think I had it, but maybe this one time. So how can depression look? Like from a lighter case to maybe a more stronger case?
So depression, it's going to vary, but for most people there's feelings of being down for more days than not, out of probably like a 1 or 2 week period. There's going to be noticeable changes in behavior. So not only will you be feeling down, but probably feeling somewhat hopeless. Maybe you don't enjoy activities that you used to enjoy. Those things are no longer fun. Sometimes people will isolate and stay in their homes, or kind of disconnect from family members or supports, things like that. And then there's biological changes with eating and sleeping and kind of like your daily routine types of things. Those can tend to decrease. Eating can sometimes increase, and sleeping can also sometimes increase, but there's noticeable changes.
So with the sleeping now, just because of the generation that I'm working with, so if they're up during the night doesn't necessarily mean they have depression. It could be a multitude of things.
Correct.
But if the other things that you're talking about kind of work with that and is disruptive to their sleep, then that may be something they would consider at least looking into further.
Yep. Going in and getting it checked out. And most importantly, if there are ever thoughts of wanting to hurt yourself or even others or something of that nature, those are certainly things that you'd want to get checked out.
Okay. So if we're sitting out there saying, okay, maybe I should go in and at least have a conversation with someone. How do you, I can imagine my audience out there going, well, how do you call in and say, okay, I want to be screened for depression. I want to be screened for depression. You know, it's like, I don't really want to say this. So how can they approach that and at least have the process begin if that is something that they may be looking at needing?
So I think of it like a medical appointment. And so you've noticed a change and you want to go to the doctor and get it checked out. So you call and you say, hey, I've just noticed some changes. Maybe I'm feeling down, or you certainly don't have to use the word depression, but I just want to talk to somebody and see if this is actually happening, or if this is normal, or what the case is. And it's a conversation. Most of the time, yes, you go through an assessment and you ask questions and kind of get a thorough background, but it's no different than going and seeing a doctor.
Sure, because when you go in, the doctor doesn't say, look at you, oh, you must have this. They say, have you had a temp? Have you had pain? You know, so it's kind of the same type of thing, asking several questions to get to the base of, okay, this may be our issue.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, wonderful. Well, let's talk about depression a little bit more. We talked about it being very common. Do you happen to have a stat like it's 1 in so many people, or is it?
You know, I had something posted earlier on our Facebook page, and I don't recall what the exact stat is, but it's well over 50% of people that would experience a mental health issue within their lifetime. Well over 50% of the population.
Because I noticed in our emailing back and forth that it was 1 in 5. And so if you think about that, in a room of 10 people, because everybody likes to deal in tens, 2 people are probably dealing with an issue. And I think that gets to be it's a really common problem.
It is. And I think for some people it can be hard to identify that, because the change can be so gradual that you don't notice what is happening. And then all of a sudden, you know, maybe you've stayed in your home for several days or several weeks at a time and have kind of not interacted with people in your life, and you feel down, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what happened here? You know, it's a gradual change.
Okay. So I think that's really important with the gradualness, and I think that's also important for, let's talk about, what if you're a family member or you're a friend and you're going, something's not quite right, but I don't know what it is. So do you have some keys for family members or friends that if they're worried about someone they love, some things to perhaps watch for, or some things to help encourage them on?
So I think one of the main things that you're going to want to try is to pay attention and to see what is going on with that individual, if there have been changes. And if there have been changes that you notice, you may want to ask about it, but not, are you depressed? But more so, hey, are you okay? I noticed something has been going on with you. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it? Most of the time people don't want to talk about it. It can be a challenging thing to explain to a family member, and it can be kind of embarrassing at times. But sometimes by sparking that conversation and letting them know that you are there, that you are willing to talk with them, that you are a support for them, those are very important things to do. And maybe it takes a couple different times to say, are you sure? Are you sure you're okay? Can I help you with anything? Do you want to come out, and do you want to maybe go to a restaurant with me, or do you want to come over to our house and watch a movie together? Inviting them to get out of their house and to engage in behavior that they used to do.
Okay. I think those are really important things, is just taking a small step. And I think by what you said, it takes off the pressure from the person who's concerned. Because if they don't want to use the term, just the simple, are you okay? And I think it's funny because at one point, because at the center, when I'll ask people, "Are you okay?" and they'll say, "Oh, I'm fine. No one will listen anyway." And my first response back is, "No, I'm here to listen. It's okay. Tell me." You know. So I think when you ask them, I think it's asking in a sincere mode, not just like, "Hey, how are ya?" or "Are you okay?" You know, it's just that. Sometimes it's that body language and sincerity of tone that says, "Yeah, I'm really concerned. Are you truly okay?"
I think that's a very good point. The sincerity, and sometimes asking indirectly, or not in front of like a group of people. Just pulling them to the side and, you know, genuinely looking at them and asking out of concern, are you okay? I'm worried about you. Right. You know, that's something that resonates with them, and most people can read that tone and that that there is concern there.
Okay, wonderful. So again, you know, that depression, it truly is not a taboo word. Let's talk about it. Let's care about our friends and our family, and let's take the time to really say, "Are you okay?" What if we have a friend or a family member that we feel has really, really secluded themselves and has really had a change in habits that we have noticed, and it's been gradual for them, but they're not opening up. Are there avenues that we can go and reach out to say, "Hey, you know, I think this is getting worse and I'm not sure what to do anymore"?
Sometimes bringing in an external person can be an okay avenue. Maybe that's a pastor or a different friend or a different caretaker, or asking them to go in and talk with somebody. When it's family and friends, sometimes relationships are different. And so bringing in a third party can be helpful. Sometimes they trust that person's professional opinion or, you know, whatever differently than their family. So bringing in a third party can be helpful. Sometimes people can be resistant to that too. And so if there are significant changes and people can get depressed to the point where they don't want to be here anymore. And that is concerning. And if that does happen to somebody, then something needs to happen. We need to make sure that we're keeping them safe and helping them. And that does happen. And in those circumstances, you usually have to bring in a third party to get that support and to get them the help that they need.
Right. So don't be afraid to, you know, at least reach out if you're really, really concerned. But, you know, just take those steps carefully and with caution.
Yes, definitely, definitely.
Wonderful. So we've been talking about depression, and we know that some of the real typical ways for depression, people will go in, make an appointment, just like they would with a medical doctor. They can make that appointment with medical doctors. They can make it with mental health specialists like yourself and your clinic. You go in and make that appointment. You have a conversation, a lot like what we've been doing, but just with some questions. And the questions, from my experience and helping people go through it, aren't really that invasive. They're pretty general questions, are they not? Can you give some examples of perhaps a question or two that might be asked if someone went in for screening?
Yeah, so when people come into my office, I want to hear about what's going on right now. I want to hear about most recently what concerns them and what's going on with them. And they share with what they're comfortable. And I'll ask questions about, you know, their background and how long it's been going on for. Sometimes we want to talk and get more of like a background on their history. So we'll talk about simple things like where you went to school. What's your religion? How does that involve in your life? And do you have siblings? Do you have kids? Things that are easier to talk about too. So a portion is about what's going on right now, and a portion is on your history and gathering information and to figure out how this developed and what is going on.
Right, and what may be kind of a cause of it, or if there is depression there.
Yep.
So let's talk about treatments for depression. Now, some of the more typical ones are medications, correct?
Yep. You can go to your like primary doctor, your family physician, and you can often get an antidepressant or another type of medication there. You can see a psychiatrist or a nurse practitioner and get medication. You can also schedule to see a mental health therapist and talk with them about what's going on. There's different types of treatments that you can receive through a counselor that can work towards treating depression. Most of the time, the best treatment for depression is a combination of medications of some sort and individual therapy.
Yeah. And when people out there hear therapy, I can again see the red flags like, oh no, I'm not going there. But this is this is therapy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a simple conversation, and if it improves your life, take the time. I mean, there's no shame in it. It's not in the days that we're not into locking anybody up.
No.
Putting them away. It's helping you to have an active, normal day again.
When people come into my office, I want to give them a cup of coffee and I want them to sit down and I want to talk with them. I want to get to know them and figure out what's going on, and I legitimately want to help them, and we'll do what it takes to get them to a better state, whatever that looks like for them.
Right. And that's what we want to hear. She wants to get you to a better state. She wants you to be able to live life again and to live each day as fully as you can. And so that's really important. Now, she's located at Tiger Park here in Marshall. But I also understand you guys have some of the newest technology to treat depression. So can we share a little bit about that and what that is?
Yes. So at our place we have something called transcranial magnetic stimulation, and it's called TMS. And this is the most technologically advanced treatment for depression. And so this treatment, you receive magnetic stimulation on the cortex part of your brain, and it helps to kind of awaken your brain to get rid of the depression.
Oh, so it kind of is like has gone to sleep and like Rip Van Winkle doesn't want to wake up, right?
Right.
And we're saying, hey, it's time to get up, go to school.
Yes. And you don't take medications for that. You can continue on your medications that you're currently on, but TMS is not an additional medication. You just come in, receive the treatment, go home. It is an extended treatment for usually 4 to 6 weeks or something like that, and then you're done.
Wow, so 4 to 6 weeks. I think it's very interesting. Is it something that you have found is typically covered by insurance? Do you know that? Or?
Most insurances will cover TMS. I believe medical assistance does not at this time, unfortunately, and I believe that they are working on that, and we would really like them to cover it as well, because it's a treatment that works, and there's data that proves that it works. But otherwise, most insurances typically do cover it.
Okay, that's wonderful to know. I think it's exciting that right here in Marshall, I so often like to listen to people talk about Marshall and what we have and the things that they wish we had. But now we have the latest technology for depression, typically 4 to 6 weeks. Wow. I mean, I think that's just really, really awesome. What is 1 or 2 last words you like to leave people out there on about depression?
The thing that I want people to know about depression is that it's treatable. And it happens to a lot of people. There is nothing wrong with having depression. It's almost normal. And I want people to know that there is help out there, and it doesn't have to be painful or uncomfortable or weird or anything like that. It's a conversation about what is going on with you and how we can legitimately get you to a healthier point or a healthier place in your life. And it's possible. It certainly is possible. You don't have to be in therapy the rest of your life. It's a part of your life, and hopefully with treatment and with help, it doesn't have to be that way the rest of your life.
Wow. Well, Kelsey, thank you so much for being on. We hope that people will look you up. We will have your name and your phone number following the show on the screen. So just thank you very much. Again, you're located at Tiger Park. Now, for those who are going Tiger Park, it's right off of Main Street in between Casey's in Hy-Vee. There's a little park back in there. It's where the hospice location is also located. It's back in there. And your phone number there for the office in case someone's looking?
Yep, it's 507-337-0556.
Okay. So Kelsey, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
We covered a tough topic, and please just reach out a hand. It's okay. And I know Kelsey cares, and I care too. So take care of yourself.